Hello, everyone. This is episode 24 of High Fantasy, member of the Broken Jars Network. And
Yes.
no, it's 24, and I'm certain of it this time. So it's just a little neurosis there. And then you did. Right. So, have anyone been productive since the last time? Okay, rewriting has its place. And you have half a page of handwritten scribbles?
Notes, yes. Actually, in my handwriting, it is definitely scribbles.
Yeah.
I have some of the worst handwriting ever. But
I
I'm just putting ideas on paper.
which is good. I mean,
Better than nothing.
when I was trying to plot out more of the diner story that's in Chicago, totally not a ripoff of Dresden, I kept getting the one obstacle, like the second obstacle. I'm trying to figure it out, and I'm still stuck on that. And then, like yesterday, I realized that dwarves are fun, like Tolkien Warhammer type dwarves. It's like, I think I'm stuck. I'm gonna have to work on that for a little while because I can't stop thinking about it. Shit.
Dwarves are so much fun.
They are fun. Holy shit. And so,
I would totally
getting
drop my 40k army if they came out with any dwarves. Seeing as the entire Malazan series came from D&D games, yeah, that counts.
I mean, if you publish it at some point, great. If you're
I can't on Tuesday nights. I left that Discord because I saw the timing. My actual D&D session is Tuesday nights.
well, I mean,
I'd have to go look at them again. You could just, like the D&D I play on Tuesday nights is Death Watch, which is a 40k setting, which has it's D&D, but it's got all the rules for laser guns and whatnot. And it's all base 100, which is very, very nice to play with.
so getting back onto the topic of this episode, because I think Jacob is just trying to derail at this point.
He's afraid of this topic.
It so don't overrun about D&D. But anyway, this topic is kind of it's politics within stories or stories that have a political agenda, and it's kind of a return to the ranting episode because after we did the rant about all the things episode, the next week for Dresden we had like no preparation. So we basically did the same thing and asked what would happen to require for the diehard Dresden fans to stop reading or at least be really angry about it. And when I made that Reddit post, we got a lot of participation actually. And a lot of the comments turned into, I would stop reading if he became too preachy, either about some form of politics or the Christianity. And basically, don't do what the Sword of Truth did, which I quite enjoyed, and I watched other people discuss it because the Sword of Truth did pretty much everything wrong. And a lot of it was the fact that he couldn't get off of his politics. And not that the world had its own internal politics, which was one thing, because that can be fun, but the fact that communism is terrible and every book became just that. And it's that kind of discussion I want to get into. Like, what, when was it done badly? Like, sort of truth. When can it be done well? How can politics of real issues be treated in ways that aren't story breaking, essentially? And I know we're gonna get derailed, and I know it, but that's what we're trying to discuss.
I don't think she pulled that off as well as she thinks she did.
Yeah, I didn't really,
Yeah.
sort of. Totalitarianism.
Totalitarianism. Gotta make it Germany.
Yep, but that isn't the kind of topic that I was hoping this is going to be because 1984 is a book about politics. And that's different than, say, a fantasy or sci fi story that all of a sudden goes on a rant about gun rights or abortion or racism. Well, Sort of Truth is also internally consistent in the fact that communism is bad. Every time that the evil empire of communism shows up, it is bad, it is terrible, people are unhappy, and Richard, the awesome Mary Sue person, just comes in and saves everything. That always happens. It is eternally consistent. But he's like taking an outside political idea, putting it in his own world where he controls all of the nuances and everything that happens and the after effects, people's decisions, and forces it to be that his guy always wins and what he hates always loses.
And what he hates is bad because it
Mm-hmm.
has to be bad.
And everyone else considers it bad. So there's no one that can truly say that, no, this is a good thing and provide good reasons for it. It's one sided and it just makes it terrible. Sort of.
Sort of truth. I think the bigger I think the bigger issue has to do with the black and whiteness of his treatment of it.
Yeah.
Communism is bad, period. No
Yeah.
ifs,
And
ands, or
every
buts.
single time it's bad. There's no good thing about it. It's always internal suffering. And I mean, communism does have issues. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying it's great, but it's not as terrible as he was portraying it with like people ripping their eyes out because they want to be good for the people and all weird shit like that. It's
What?
like he was making a straw man of it, a caricature of itself in order to make it worse. And that made his favorite self-insert type character more awesome because he defeated it. I mean, whenever Richard does anything, it always ends up being the right decision. Even when it, like, if you think about it for more than a couple seconds, it should be the wrong one. And he just, like, what Terry Goodkind did was always forcing it to be the way that he wanted it to without, like, making it logical. Sort of. I mean, you can say something like that. Like if someone decided to make a story and has like the political government is a matriarchy and everything's wonderful and it's happy and they have no problems with it. It's if, when you put it as this thing and it's always the best one and put it on a pedestal that way and it doesn't have any flaws and then people can look at it and say, see, it worked. That's what we should do. And that's what when you're trying to do that with the agenda of it for their story, it
It's
makes
just
it
bad.
less entertaining. It's less realistic because everything's got its problems. And it's just kind of a bad thing to do in story writing because it's not story writing, it's propaganda. You look so unhappy with me. I mean, it could also just be. I mean, I love stories that have political strife as the tension and the conflict in the stories. I love that stuff. House of Cards, yes, but when it become, yeah,
And then reality overtook it.
well, okay, ignoring that. But that kind of stuff I do love. It's that when one person is obviously wrong and the other person is obviously right, and you boil it down to black and white, you're not getting a good story. You're just getting mental masturbation. Yes, it is. And it is easy. And that's probably why it happens a lot because it's a shortcut of like, I can't think of a more complicated bad guy, so he's just going to be the guy who tortures puppies. Everyone hates that. Everyone sympathizes with the good guy. Hmm. And when that happens with things that are or should be more nuanced with that, like say various cultures, when you show a culture in a fantasy or sci-fi setting, and like this one is treated like a porcelain doll, and the other one is treated like that's got a lot of problems, and people can critique it, but you can't say that the other one is bad either because you might be criticizing people of a different skin color when something is treated so carefully because they're afraid of a backlash, it's not going to work. I mean, there's a lot of things that are like have been written with like the point of view that women are being oppressed, we should stop that. Or people of different races are being oppressed and we should stop that, it's not right. And a lot of those stories, they can be very good, but when they become stilted in that way, when the bad guy becomes indefensible, I think that that's a marker that it's with an agenda and the protagonist is probably some form of Mary Sue that
I
is
mean,
like,
it's all right for your villains to be pure evil villains with no redeeming qualities, unless you start to ascribe real thoughts to them. If you make them into a parody of a political ideology and then give them zero redeeming qualities, you're not being faithful to your readers.
yeah. I mean, it's been established that I really like characters that are like morally gray or like the bad guy who does good things. Like, shit, I'm conflicted, but I like that because they seem like real people. No one is 100% good or bad. So the main characters should have their own like flaws, and like the characters that I love, they should have their own flaws about personal things. Like I've recently devoured the entire Temeraire series. The first book is His Majesty's Dragon, and it's all written by Naomi Novik. It's Napoleonic Wars with dragons. So
I
in the
just
Napoleonic times,
recommended it.
it's
To
wonderful.
read while waiting for Winds of Winter.
Yeah, it is really good. I love it. It's very quickly one of my favorite series now. And in the Napoleonic times, they have funny concepts like slavery is okay, gay people should be killed, and Napoleon is evil, even though what he did was actually benefiting a lot of people of France and Europe. Like he improved their industry and economy and all things like that. Like, but he's still the bad guy, and it caused a lot of uh, moral qualms there. And it was really well done. So like the main character is like when he has issues against slavery because basically his father has issues against slavery, but his best friend is the son of a slaver. He's got issues, and the friend, he isn't a bad guy. He's just stuck with his situation, and it was handled very well.
I think, well, Malazan does that a lot too. The big, even though most of the time you're seeing it from protagonists in the Malazan Empire, there's still an expansionist empire taking over places, and you come to root for people fighting against them just as much as the people fighting for them. But at the same time, he makes sure that the Malazan Empire oftentimes brings a lot of good to the places they conquer. Even though they're conquering them, they still institute their own laws, which outlaw slavery and
Hmm.
basically eliminate all the factional strifes in whatever land they conquer as much as they can. But at the same time, they're still conquering
Yeah, and
places.
within the story, that Empire is being criticized for being so expansionist, even though they're doing good things. And it's like it isn't one perspective is the right perspective,
Yeah.
and that's the big problem in
Which,
a lot of
yeah.
lots of stories is that
Um,
like this is the right thing to believe, and when they build a story around that in order to show it, that's when I have a problem. I don't I write because I find the stories are fun and I want to share them with people, but I stay away anything that could be preachy. Eh?
well, I think that's also, especially in current uh, political
Climate.
climate, it is bad to write something that portrays the other side as irredeemably evil.
And that's what everyone has been doing, or at least for really contemporary things. And that's my issue.
And
Is that
that's what good kind does wrong.
yes, I mean, okay, I don't know. It's hard to remember because it's been a long time since I've actually read the Sword of Truth series because I just couldn't handle it anymore. But what I remember of this communist empire was that everyone was suffering and no one could take initiative for anything because like, if you did anything that was against the lists or the paperwork and paperwork was throwing everything down, food was rotting because when a cart overturns, it would be impeding on someone else's job in order to pick up the food that just fell and try to save it because everything is being bogged down. And that's the way that he was trying to show it's terrible. Also, there were statues of people ripping their eyes out when they saw some form of perfection that they were trying to get to. It was really weird. But In as a contrast, in Dresden, there's Sonya, and he kind of is the whole Trotsky thing, as he says, because he wants to go do good things that needs to be done, and his life may be uncomfortable, but he's doing good things for other people. And it's like he has the nuance there that Good Kind didn't give him. And I it just am starting to have a lot of issues when books are one thing is irredeemably black or white, and they're lumping all groups into one thing instead of showing nuance or the reasons why something might happen. They just do, and it's evil. Jacob, you look like you're thinking at me very hard. Okay, it's just like you're just kind of staring at the screen, and it's like, okay, he's getting angry.
Odd.
It just, I can think of a couple of things that did the politics, real world politics, that are fairly well. And the best thing I've found so far is His Majesty's Dragon series, because he mentioned it with all sorts of issues of the fact that I heard before I read the series that there are like the dragons attached to certain people, generally one dragon to one person, and some dragons will only attach to a woman. And I was afraid that it was going to be like, well, yeah, women should be doing more things, and like they're just as good as men, and that kind of like political discourse being shoved into it. But it wasn't. It was just that some dragons don't like men. They're kind of okay with them, but they love their woman. And
But now, I mean, doesn't this get back to the idea that portraying the other side as
yeah,
wrong and
as
evil is not appropriate or faithful way of portraying anything?
and I was on the topic of religion again from His Majesty's Dragon is that the main character is very religious, and there was just like a brief thing when he was trying to tell his dragon about God and creation. Like, well, the dragon is asking a lot of difficult questions, so let's just not talk about that. But it was just really brief right there. But otherwise, he just tries to be a good person, and also he tries to be a good Christian. And it's not preachy at me that like Christianity is obviously the right thing to do. He's just trying to be a good person and follow his duty.
And I
It was
think,
like she had a lot of finesse in how she presented everything.
and one thing to do when you're doing, even if you want to put in your own political ideas, when you look at something like Malazan, where you've got characters discussing the pluses and minuses of an empire, you want to make sure that you don't feel like you're just talking through someone. Because, like, in Malazan, it's characters talking to each other who have points of view that espouse ideas, but may or may not be right ideas. Like, you want it to be characters in your books talking, not you talking through them.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, the self-insert character is fairly terrible in general, but when it becomes espousing my ideas are the best, it's just another layer of terrible. I know, and also there's things like when you're talking about like the expanding empire, it reminded me in the Song of Ice and Fire Daenerys decides to overthrow all the slavers in Slaver's Bay. And then she starts getting issues like, well, you just uprooted the entire economy. You've got problems to deal with now because everyone was okay. Maybe some people were really suffering, but other people were doing fine. And it's like the idea that slavery is bad taken to an extreme and without the understanding of the complexities of the situation just made everything worse. And I
I think
liked that
that's.
kind of turning on her.
I don't have the line in front of me because it's not in the book I'm reading, but in one of the Malazan books, when they're talking about the benefits the Empire brought when they conquered this continent, he basically goes through the list of things they've done. They've outlawed slavery, they've cut down on the faction warfare, they've, I mean, and all those kind of things. And then he just ends with the comment, so in essence, the land is just about ready for rebellion. It's like all these benefits they brought, but then the people who were already there were happy with what they had.
Yeah. And I wasn't able to get through enough of the first book of Malazan to get into anything else.
Gardens of
But
the Moon is a chore.
it,
It's a
yeah,
worthwhile chore.
I tried twice,
I know.
but it's just like when he talks about philosophy, I did think that it was his characters doing things and that there were good and bad sides of each side instead of and self-insert of anything. Maybe that's because he had the anthropologist background. It's like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, there's problems all over the place. Let's have fun with it.
In the fifth book, you've got a new empire that you run into that is very much a critique on capitalism. It has a king and queen for some reason, but the entire empire revolves around debt and the making of money. So there's an entire class of people who are indebted for even the smallest of things, and they expand by gifting. So one of their methods of expanding is they go to uh, civilizations outside their borders and bring them gifts, and then charge them for those gifts and incur debts for them that they continue to expand through. And then one of the groups they're trying to do this to ends up fighting back. But they're also, it's like they're bad too. So you don't know
Everyone's
who to root
bad.
for? Yeah,
Yeah,
that can
it's
be
just
Malazan.
morally gray.
It's always morally gray, yeah.
I mean, I feel like this
That
kind of
was really good.
topic of stories with agendas can happen just as much in not only sci-fi fantasy, but say things like romance, of like presenting, well, this image of a person is the most attractive, and I'm going to show you why because the awesomely hot love interest is going to fall for them and proclaim from the tops of every mountain that this person is attractive.
I mean, if I was going to sum up Malazan in one word, it'd be compassion, which is maybe why I like it. That is a narrative, like, that is the word that runs the narrative of the entire story. Like, the concept of compassion and what it means to care and to see the other side. So I guess if you're going to do one narrow line, pick a good quality.
Maybe, or maybe the quality that obviously will cause conflict, like compassion for your side and the other side, of
Yes.
like, yeah, other people are dying even though they're against you too, and that can be good. But I really got to disagree with Jacob's idea that people will write a story because like I have the right ideas or like this is a good thing I want to write about it. It's like I just like, hey, this is uncomfortable. Let me write about it. It's, I think it's like you're probably reading things that might start from there. So it's like your selection gives you a different view of what the audiences are. yes, but I
Keep
think
going.
that feels like kind of half finished.
Yeah,
That there's more you
I
should
don't
be
think.
saying.
That
Okay.
did. Sorry, I thought that was like half of a statement too.
Yeah.
I feel like most stories are at conflict.
I have to disagree with that statement because I feel like this is like the argument for nuance episode for me.
I mean, I feel like most stories start with the concept of conflict.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that where most ideas come from? You have this idea for a conflict.
Mm,
Yeah, you've got that's your starting point usually.
yeah.
Occasionally, you've got a character that's your starting point.
Lots of times it's a character that's
Well,
uncomfortable.
I know for me, like the Carlin story came from the idea of this character who has to save the man who betrayed him, basically,
I mean, you did pretty good
which
things
is
with
still
Carlin.
conflict.
Like
I know
he
I
had
should
to
give it.
betray his friend to do what he thought was right, and then he had to help the guy who betrayed him. Or do you mean like the way that Harry and Michael are in Dresden about Christianity?
Have a
Like
little
Michael
higher.
is religious and Dresden is not. I mean, he's spoken to Uriel the Archangel. He totally knows that that exists. He just
That
it's just not
kind of
his.
annoys me. So, what is Harry? Is he just agnostic?
I think he's something I don't
Because
give a shit.
he can't, obviously, he can't be atheist because he's met God's agents.
Yeah, so he knows that God exists.
But he knows
He's
there's a
not a
God.
part of
God
a
exists. He's
theology.
aware of it. He's just, I mean, like, so does he? Obviously, he believes in God because he's met.
Well, no, I
He's
think
just
that there would be a distinction between belief and knowing.
worship.
He knows God's a
There's
thing. He does not.
belief and worship.
He knows that
He
God is real.
believes in a God. There is a God. He's met Uriel.
He
He
knows that
does
God
not
is real.
worship
He
that
just
God.
doesn't worship. He's not a part of the religion or its strictures. He does not want to promote them and be a part of their following because
Which,
he's a part of his own thing.
in essence, doesn't that make the entire idea of Christianity a human creation?
Christianity, the organized religion, is
Yes.
organized by people. But
I
the
hope
way
he
that he
doesn't.
treats Michael and Charity is that they're just good people. They're not like a straw man for like Christians are all dicks or Christians are
No,
all
Michael's
wonderful.
amazing. They're awesome.
Yeah, yeah, they're just people. And he doesn't get preachy with the religion because like Michael doesn't try to force it. He says that things like, "Well, you should really set aside Bob because he's an evil spirit," but Bob has some good qualities, and Michael's just a little protective. And also, like even the idea that like Nicodemus might be trying to do the whole redemption something, like he's also treated as a full character and not a strawman of what is evil,
No,
even
Nicodemus
though
is. I don't even know if I'd call him evil.
we've had arguments about that on the other podcast so many times.
That's understandable. He's a very difficult character to pin down.
Yeah. I mean, Justin did a lot of things right. And also just the like
Yeah.
Murphy, she's a rather short, small woman who's doing a very masculine type job. And the way that they treat her with it is, I feel, very accurate. But it's not that like she can do everything. She does mess up. She does make mistakes and she fails and fights. She's not a straw person character of
The strong,
like
powerful
women
woman.
are awesome. Yeah, she's not Wonder Woman. She's just an awesome woman.
And I do like how in Skin Game when she makes the wrong choice.
Yeah.
The very
And
wrong choice. The choice that she would make as a character every time, and you know she would
mhm.
do it. But it was
Yeah,
the wrong
and
choice.
she knew that it was also kind of the wrong choice. Like she knew the consequences of it, but she couldn't deal with the consequences of the other one either. It's just like she's a very well done, fleshed out character in all forms. And it's like the argument for nuance, god damn it, is I do not want straw people with one or two flat qualities.
Well,
I
that was
want real conflict in them.
that was what one of the things I ranted about in tropes. I hate characters who are your character is a flaw. Like you start with what's their flaw and that's your character, or what's their attribute and that's their character.
Yeah.
That's very
And
boring.
oh, this is a risky statement, but I kind of feel like in the current social climate of identity politics, trope characters are probably a little bit more common because it's like I identify as a gay person, therefore the entire story is going to be colored that way when it doesn't have to be.
I feel like it's even. Oh, God. I mean, it has very much become an us versus them scenario, and the us is a single identity on one quality, and it's terrible.
Yeah, and everyone who disagrees with you is a Nazi. I mean, yeah, there are actual neo Nazis, white supremacists, but a guy who just disagrees with you isn't the same thing.
I was gonna say, I feel like the current season of Game of Thrones has gone that way, where each character is like, this is what the character was about, so this is what he's gonna do every time.
Mm-hmm. And
Arya's
they've
the
got.
creepy assassin girl, and no longer has the ability to think outside that box.
Ugh.
I hate her storyline right now.
Well, they got better a couple of seasons ago. Jamie was just the dude that fucks his sister.
No, and that, well,
Uh,
that's one of the things that I hate with Jamie right now is that we got that character development. We saw the layers underneath the skin. We realized how conflicted he is, and now he's just Cersei's bitch again. I don't know where did the depth go? And you look at what they did to Loras when you talk about
oh,
gay characters. Loras in the books is a man devoted to and probably in love with Renly Baratheon. And that devotion is what makes his character. In the show, it's this guy's gay. Here's him
mhm.
having sex with guys. He's gay. It's like,
and and that was it. I mean,
that was
Loras
it.
was the second coming of Jamie Lannister. He was way too skilled for his age and a very complicated person who happens to be gay instead
And in
of
the
the
show,
gay
he's gay.
party boy.
Oh,
And it was they did that very badly.
like, that almost got to the level of offensiveness. And I don't get offended at a lot of things.
But-
Then again,
So,
that's what I feel like the Grey Worm storyline
oh
just seemed.
god,
It just seems like the two showrunners were like, "Haha, I wonder what it'd be like if a eunuch had sex," and that's all their
I'm,
entire point of it was.
I think a lot of that is we're on HBO. We have to show boobs once in a while.
Actually, it feels like people don't care anymore and just want the show. Go figure.
Yeah,
We don't have time for the stupid storyline that gives us boobs. Let's get back to the White Walkers and whatnot.
I mean, I think that as a lot of like, I stopped reading the Anita Blake series because there was just too much sex everywhere. And I'm not a prude. I can really enjoy sex scenes, but the way that she just filtered sexual conflict through everything is just like it would became too much. Like, in order to get information, she had to go to an orgy. Exactly. Yeah. For people who's not watching the video, did not get to see Colin's face, but it was the face of why the fuck would you do that? It's like, and then there was this broken like boy that was attached to her for a little while, and he was trying to help. But anytime that she's mad, he tries to have sex with her, and then she gets mad at that, and then he's like, "Oh, why don't you love me?" or something like that. I couldn't. Within the first like chapter or two, she's making out with a vampire, even though she hates his guts. It's like, oh really? You hate him, but you have to
Have you watched
like.
Buffy?
Ugh. I hated Buffy.
Did you watch much of it?
I watched the first season and couldn't
Okay.
take it anymore.
Because when Buffy starts sleeping with Spike, it just gets. She's just hate fucking him all the time, and it gets kind of weird.
I mean, weird can be okay. Weird can be
Yeah.
fun. Hate fucking can be fun. Stop
And it is
using
James Marsters.
sex. Yeah. Just stop using sex as like
To be
trying to
fair,
be titillating.
I think Sanderson has the opposite issue.
I will give credit to Sanderson on at least one issue in Stormlight Archive when Dalinar is in a relationship with his dead brother's wife, widow.
Yeah, that's pretty.
He wants to marry her, and she's perfectly fine with that. She wants to have sex, and he says, no, it's not proper. And there's a conversation of her pointing out that, like, this is a little stupid. You realize that. And he's like, yes, I know it's irrational, but still, it's not proper. So, I mean, obviously, Sanderson was using his own point of views and poking fun at them. And I'll give him
Yeah.
credit for that.
I just feel
And
like, well, maybe in Mistborn he hadn't quite gotten willing to step outside that.
yeah. I mean, he wrote Mistborn before he got married.
He did.
Yeah.
Huh.
But it still always kind of bugged me that like Vin and Elend were in a relationship for a couple of years, and then they got married, and then they start sleeping together.
Yeah, it doesn't seem particularly realistic.
It doesn't, especially since like Vin just grew up on the streets. Why would she give a shit about that? There's
Yeah,
no reason that she would care.
and that's when the self-insert author shows up.
Yeah, because he didn't establish as to why she cared or why even Elend cared. It was a little bit more reasonable for him.
Yeah, the nobles kind of seem like party boys, but then
Yeah.
Elend. I know Elend is obviously different, but at the same time,
No, he's the party boy that like just
like
reads philosophy books at the party and it's like I'm better than you because I read books. Yeah,
that wouldn't be me at all or anything.
it's like well then I liked the moment when he and his friends retreated into like a smaller room and just like spoused about political things and like we should really change the world with our ideologies that are written in books written by other people who are smarter than us. It's just, that felt actually fairly realistic as to what that
Yeah,
person would be.
I did. It actually
But
kind of made me feel bad. And is it the second or the third one when his friend brings a Koloss army to the city?
I don't remember.
But it's like, and this is when someone's philosophy just falls apart. But it makes you feel bad for the character, and it makes you feel bad for Elen that he sees what his friend became.
Yeah, I don't know. There was some good parts about Mistborn, obviously, and there's some bad parts. And Sanderson's getting better, and he pokes fun at his own things. He has an atheist character in Stormlight Archive, which I don't know if it's that she doesn't believe in the gods existing or she just doesn't think they're worth worshiping. But regardless, she was my favorite.
And I still like the twist with the Lord Ruler,
I mean, I liked her.
who's
I like
not
Jasmine
pure evil.
because she one does a lot of the world building explanations, which I really love, and then she's critical of things and gets really pointed into the plot line versus anything that's just roundabout whatever. I didn't like her because she's an atheist. I just was impressed that he made her.
True. I mean, she just does not subscribe to anything in particular. She's always going to question things.
Hmm.
I did like the Lord Ruler reveal, though. This guy who is set up as just this evil villain who's been ruling an evil empire for God knows how long. And it turns out he was just doing what he thought was necessary to protect people.
Yeah, he had a different perspective. So yeah, he would slaughter 1,000 people at a time, but it was because he was trying to save 3 billion people all at once.
Out there, yeah.
Yeah,
Doesn't make
and
him right, but
no, but it does change what he was, and it changes like oh, he's kind of sympathetic now. He had nuance that you just didn't get to see before.
you can have compassion for what he chose to do.
Uh huh. Kind of want to see a transcript word cloud of this episode. Keep throwing around the same words. If you get bored one night, but
I mean, if you did a word cloud of Malazan, you would probably come up with compassion, and then Hood's balls. Hood's balls is probably second on the list of words said in that series. We need you. I'm trying to think of Wheel of Time and how well or not well he did various political things.
I didn't really get to see much politics in the first book, and I never got around to reading beyond that because that was just a little bit of a chore. Not as bad as a chore as the Malazan book, but it's just like I don't know if I want to go get this next one.
Well, I feel like they have the opposite issues. Malazan is I don't have a clue what's going on, and you're not going to have a clue what's going on even at the end of the book. But every book kind of fills in the details as you go. It's fairly impressive how he does that, but it's still really difficult to get to the start. Whereas Eye of the World, I don't even know if you need to read the book. Just if you've read Lord of the Rings, it's the same goddamn book.
It was very similar.
It is. I don't know how. I mean, yeah, Lord of the Rings was the thing at the time when he wrote that, but that introduction could have been in the Shire with no issues whatsoever. And you kind of want to stand out as an author, don't you? Or do you want to? Or do you just want to go with the rote idea that everyone feels safe with?
I mean, I don't know.
I guess that's why, like, literally, literary agents will throw your book in the trash if you open up with a farm boy.
Well, by now, because everyone did it for too long. Tolkien did it, essentially, with the Shire, and then, like, Wheel of Time is about a farm boy who went to save the world, and... Well, okay, no. Codex Alera, he started with a farm boy.
True.
Because he wanted to be the tropiest thing as possible. But he was an
established author. And Lost Roman Legion.
Yeah.
But it's more like, I'm Jim Butcher, I don't give a fuck. I'm already on the scene.
He wasn't, like, successful at that point. He just like, hey, I'm good enough at when he started Codex Alera, a couple of books of Dresden might have been out, but he was not what you call successful yet.
It was first published in 2004. That was only 4 years later.
So Stormfront came out 4 years before Codex Alera.
But he had 6 books out in the Dresden series.
Okay, 6 books.
Yeah, Blood Rights was out at the time before Furies of Calderon came out.
Okay.
He was at a convention when he got the idea, so obviously he was big enough.
I remember him saying he was on an internet forum because I remember the description of it's the kind of argument you turn caps lock on and start screaming.
Oh, I thought he was at a convention.
Okay, whatever. It's just...
Well, the Wikipedia says that he was challenged by a member of Del Rey's online writers' workshop.
Ha! That doesn't mean it happened on the forum.
Also, that he could not write a good book using 2 lame ideas, and Pokemon and the Lost Roman Legion are lame ideas? What the hell?
What I think it was is that the guy was sick of those ideas and thought because he was sick of them, everyone else would be too.
Neither one of those ideas is really heavily used by anybody.
Pokemon did itself to death, but
as like a concept in fantasy, I don't really see Pokemon as an idea. Granted, I don't feel like he did Pokemon justice. He just went back to the general concept of elemental spirits, which everyone has done.
Mm,
But still, he
yeah,
did it well.
I don't know. When you get rid of something like the Pokeball, it really changes what Pokemon are.
Yeah. I read that entire series, and I still don't have a great concept of what the hell the Furies are and how people use them.
I think I don't know. I remember really loving the descriptions of what people were saying inside the story of like the people in the cities thought they were just mindless things that people can control, but the people out in the rural areas, like they have personality and they're slightly stronger, and like they can be passed down throughout the family and with their personalities, and it's just kind of a difference in what they think is right, and it seems like both are right in how they
Yeah.
conceptualize it.
The biggest trouble I had is with the way like some people seem to only to have literally one ability,
And then other people can have more. And I
but there's
think
no
that
reasoning behind why there is this difference.
uh, that I remember being explained that
Does it?
you kind of have like a duty to procreate, and people with powerful furies have a duty to procreate with other people who have powerful furies in order to make bloodlines of people who have multiple. That's why the nobility generally have all of the furies, but the common people
But
generally
can't
have
you
one.
just meet a Fury and seduce it?
Well, that's the more Pokemon angle, but I don't think that happened. Guess he's getting into the
Isn't
whole
that
like
how what's his
trainers
name?
have one.
Taven gets all of his Furies? He befriends local
Tavi?
spirits. Tavi, whatever his name is. Octavian.
No, no, he
God, I
got
haven't
his
read them in a
furies
while.
because they were bequeathed to him.
Were they all?
Yeah.
Oh man,
Well,
I need to read that series
he was
again.
just he was developing late, like literally just 10 years late, essentially. And then when he got a bigger one, it's like it was bequeathed to him, and that's what the nobility are doing. And yeah, it's been out for a long time. Read the damn series already. Well, read the book instead of listen to it. That solves that issue. Aw.
I'm finally over the narration change in Malazan, but I still miss Wealthlister.
Do we have other things to say about political
Probably.
agendas and stories? Okay, because I we could go on more about like what when people did it well, but my examples are pretty much the Temeraire series and Dresden at the moment.
And pretty much everything I talk about is just Malazan at this point.
Yeah, you're the hashtag Malazan guy.
Kind of need to be. Well, I'm listening to it at work. I'm reading it out. One of them. Yeah.
Yeah. And oh, by the way, okay, I'm gonna use these few minutes that we have remaining until this in the hour to just say that Sword of Truth series is terrible for more reasons than the anti-communism, but like Harry Goodkind, dick.
I mean, for a fantasy and sci-fi podcast. We should not talk about 1984 until we've all read it. I have too, but it is a book that you can't talk about without reading it.
Well, I don't know. There's more politics to be discussed. I mean, there's books that are political, and then there's like the politics that happen in getting a book even made, which might be kind of similar, but maybe not. It's just, how do you feel about that part?
But
And
politically relevant. which again is why you should not write a book that portrays one side as irredeemable. So next time it's just books we like.
I don't know if I've
So,
read anything
classics.
that old. I avoided those in high school, and I hated the ones I was forced to read.
Have you
I
read
don't
Lord
know
of
if
the
I know any of
Rings?
those. I did not read Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, you should read more.
I read more contemporary things. Things that are like 20 years old instead. I can talk about those. We'll figure it out. Very good kinds of dick. I need to explain a little bit more about that. Like, this is personally bothering me.
I feel like I need to
Apparently,
read the Sword of Truth, Wheel of Time, same thing, not at all. So I can
there's no braid
understand
tugging in Sword of
the
Truth.
hate. Okay, so yeah, that's a thing.
But here's
That is
like
a
a
very
level of
is.
pretentiousness that good
Is
kind got to.
universe a political issue? Gender differences a political issue? Because I feel like Jordan just, oh my god.
Okay, you know how you hate waiting for a new book to come out when you're all caught up in the series, and so a lot of you like you'll like reread the series as you're waiting for the next
When
one.
is Doors of Stone coming out?
Who the fuck knows?
And
But
Winds of Winter.
Terry Goodkind did this thing of like he had one book, and then he didn't want people to read it too fast, so he split it up into three to deliberately extend the waiting time so people would be forced to read it and more
Think
consume
about it.
his important messages and make sure that they're fully appreciated.
That just
I
sounds like a guy sucking his own dick.
He is, yeah. It's just like God, I hate this guy. Okay, I got my message out there.
Before we get in trouble.
I'm sorry, everyone. I just I gotta. I'm doing the Dresden podcast next time, and the long haul. Bye.
Hashtag Malazan. That's the only thing I got to plug. Perfect. So we need to fix our. I don't want to say fix because I like it, but our logo on brokenjars.xyz for this podcast. All of the others are like big and poppin', and ours looks sleek, but it's not big and poppin'. I don't know why it just stands out as not the same. True. Everyone else is just like in your face, and ours is just like spit in there. Though I'm glad we fixed the spacing issue that was there before. Oh. Oh. Okay. No idea. She's still there, right? She's just not on. What? I'm confused. Oh, she's still. Oh nope, there she. Okay, now it's just you. That's weird. But she doesn't leave Zencast. We're still a hype, but we're still a fantasy podcast. And sci-fi. I know. I mean, no, a lot of big heavyweights in like sci-fi go after the dystopia theory, which you're not doing justice without talking about 1984. No. Gunship? Oh my god, this. Have you seen Katy Perry's new music video? I don't listen to Katy Perry, but this music video got linked on Reddit because it is. I mean, she's a pop star, right? This video is one of the worst things I've ever seen.